Hi guys, now we'll see Leetcode SQL question consecutive numbers. So here we are given a table named logs which have some columns like ID and num. They are of type int and varchar. In this table, ID is the primary key for this table. And it is also given that ID is an auto increment column starting from 1. Now we have to find all the numbers that appear at least 3 times consecutively. It means the number that appears at least in 3 continuous rows, and we can return the result in any order. Like we'll see example to understand this question in a better way. Like this is logs table. Here we have 2 columns, ID and num. This is like if we see ID is auto incrementing, and this is the nums. If we see one has come consecutively 3 times. That is in 3 rows continuously it has come. So one will be part of our resultant table. If we see two has also come 3 times, but it has not come in 3 continuous rows. But our condition says it should appear at least 3 times consecutively. So two is not a valid num. So it is not part of our resultant table. So now what should be our approach? So our approach is very simple. Like if we take any num and if its previous row's num column value is same and its next row's num column value is same, then we can certainly say that we'll get at least three matlab nums that are same, or we can say that we'll get at least three numbers that appear 3 times consecutively. So now how like we can do that? So one approach comes in our mind is that if somehow in same row we can get like num, what is the num's previous row's value and num's next row's value? Then simply we can filter the data based on the condition that num's value num's value should be equal to num's previous value as well as num's next value. So how we can get that? So we can just do self join of logs table with itself on the condition that ID value of second should be equal to ID value of first plus one. Then we got resultant table. In this way, we'll get num column and num's next value. But how we want one more next value of nums also. So then we'll again take logs table and do do join with the resultant table that we got on the condition that l- log num matlab logs ID of the third table should be equal to the ID of second table plus one. In this way, we got a resultant table where we have num's next column, next row value, as well as next row value. And now we can simply filter on the condition that num's value should be equal to num's next row as well as next row's value. Now, like we'll see the actual SQL query to understand it in a better way. So, like here we can see first we have joined the logs table with itself on the condition that ID of second table should be equal to ID of first table plus one. Then we got one resultant table. Then again we have joined with logs table itself on the condition that ID of third table should be equal to ID of second table plus one. Now we got a resultant table where we have num as well as num's next row value as well as next row value. Now, as per our requirement, we are selecting only one column and renaming as consecutive nums from the resultant table that we got after joining the logs table 3 times. Then we are filtering based on the condition that nums where L1 dot num should be equal to L2 dot num. That is, this num's value should be equal to the num's next row value as well as num's next row value should be equal to num's next row value. So in this way, we are sure that at least num will appear 3 times consecutively. This will satisfy our condition. But it may be possible that num may like one may come again 3 times later. So in this column, we'll get 2 times one. but we want only one times one, so we have also added distinct here. Now we'll see another approach. So the only thing we want is if somehow for every row we get num's previous row value and num's next row value, then we can simply like filter the data based on the condition that num's value should be equal to num's previous value and num's value should be equal to num's next row value. So instead of doing these all self-join multiple times, in SQL we have standard window functions lag and lead that we can use. Lag gives the data of value of previous rows and lead gives the value of next rows. Like we'll see here the syntax. Syntax is simple. We'll write lag, then column name and offset. Offset says how many rows we should look back. Then over, this is defines the window. If we'll not write anything inside over, it tells that whole table you consider as one window. And lead also is simple. We write lead, then column name and offset how many rows we should look forward. Then over defines window. We have not given anything inside. So whole table is considered as window. So simply we have selected ID, num, then previous rows value as previous num and next rows value as next num from logs, and we have stored this in temporary table. After that, as per our requirement, we have just done select distinct num and we have renamed as consecutive nums from this temporary table and filtered data based on the condition that num should be equal to previous num and num should be equal to next num. In this way, we'll get whatever we want as our requirement. Also, we should note that these window functions we cannot use in where clause because where clause filters data before these window functions perform their calculations. That's why here we have used common table expressions to compute this first. After that only we have done filtering.